What up, everybody, and welcome back to On the Break. I don't know what the hell we're going to talk about between the MJ Doc edition. It's Kyle Beats, Josh VG, J-Mac. Fellas, how we doing?
What up, man? Glad to be back. I'm excited to talk a little bit of hoops. Obviously, we've been kind of in a dry spell here other than the MJ Doc, but I've been watching a lot of old games still, and I feel like ESPN and ABC have vendettas against LeBron because they're playing all of his worst performing games.
You want to talk vendettas against LeBron? We're going to get into that today.
You gotta pair those with the Jordan documentary. Really get your Jordan's the greatest ever.
Yeah,
I think those are going hand in hand right now because they're just showing they've shown Game 6 of the 2011 finals 4 times on national television.
Dude, Seriously, it's been. But I feel like we're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel for the really good stuff that we've kind of gone through, and that's
It's
rough
getting
out there.
rough. I watched the 1996 NFC Championship game today, which is reminded me the last time the Cowboys were good when I was 5.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. It's really tough. It's gotten it feels like we're making progress through all of this, but at the same time, when you look at the magnitude of what something like this looks like, it feels like we're still kind of early on. And I really wanted to get a you guys take on where you guys feel like we're at on all this. I think, Kyle, you're a little more optimistic. Josh, I haven't really gotten a chance to talk to you about it, but where do you guys stand? Tell me a little bit about that first.
Before Josh goes, are we talking about sports or just the virus in general, or just culture? I think I'm more optimistic than both of you probably. I still think we are being a little too optimistic maybe as a country and dipping our toe in the water a little too quickly. There's going to be second waves of this. A lot of health officials have said that. Some of the best minds have said that. That's probably going to happen. And I understand wanting to keep the economy afloat. I understand both sides of the coin, but I think we're dipping our toe back in a little too quickly. But I do think sports happen in 2020 in some capacity, I don't know if you guys are there yet.
Do you think the NBA comes back?
That I'm a lot less optimistic than NFL for all the reasons I've told you, which is just the NFL is
the NFL.
They're a more greedy league, but it's also a more difficult thing to put together with that many players. So it'll be interesting. I'm 50-50 still in the NBA. I'm more optimistic, I think, than I know you are, J-Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty pessimistic on the NBA. I don't think there's very much chance of it coming back this year. Silver has come out and publicly said he's not going to have his league use up half the tests in America just so that they can keep the NBA going, which
is the right thing to say.
It's the right thing to say and the right thing to do. I'm a big fan of Silver in that. It's a very progressive. I'm willing to lose money to make everybody else safe, and I freaking love Adam Silver for that. I don't trust the NFL to do something like that. I think I'm on the same page as you guys in that Goodell has always said it's about money more than anything else. As far as the virus goes, nothing's changed, dude. We're reacting to this thing, and states are opening back up. Texas is back up. We're from Texas, and Texas is back up. So is Oklahoma opening back up. But the virus isn't less effective at transmitting than it was before. It isn't more curable than it was before, and it isn't less deadly than it was before. So I don't know.
So this is.
I think that this is very selfish to open up these economies again. I get that people's livelihood are at stake, and that's what's difficult. Is right now you have these parts of the country that haven't been hit by the virus because they got the benefit of getting to see what happened in New York or what happened in California, and then shutting down and locking down to try and prevent that. And so you have a bunch of people that weren't affected by it, don't know anybody that was affected by it, kind of put it to the side and say New York and California are different. They're so packed in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But they're losing their livelihood. And so you can't, in the short term, it looks like I need to get back and go back to work. But I think what is then going to end up happening is we're going to have multiple different waves of this thing sweeping throughout the Midwest and throughout the middle of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, to me, I think that it's extremely premature to open things up. And I think that this is going to make the virus go on even longer because we're opening it back up and then we're going to have another wave of it.
And things are alive and popping. I went out to the store today and there was significantly more I was at the grocery store for like an essential run, and there was significantly more people at all other locations.
Yeah.
Restaurants.
I'm definitely somewhere in between with that though, because like I mean I get the whole needing to open things up and needing to get going again and everything. I think the general sports landscape is way more non-essential than we may feel like it is, and that is probably the big differentiator. Now NFL owners may not feel the same way, but it seems like the NBA does. And it definitely feels to me like I think there's logic in opening up in places that are like North Dakota that are probably less infected than New York City. I think that it is a case-by-case basis kind of situation we're in right now. But I don't see any world where all we've been hearing about are all these plans to go play out in Vegas and Orlando and play in 8 different cities and quarantine at hotel rooms and like all this stuff. Like, it just seems so unrealistic given how many people it requires to be there to actually have an NBA game of NBA quality that counts. And I would just rather not sacrifice the product because we're having to be careful. Like, I think that's incredibly important, but I would rather not have games at all if it's going to be this ridiculous watered down version of what we're usually doing. Like, it's pretty much like calling every foul just because we're calling fouls or whatever, right? Like, kind of that same logic.
I'm willing to risk everything for LeBron to get another chance at a title.
Jesus Christ.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm with you. I think it's going to be really difficult to pull a lot of that off. It is more realistic that you could do it with the NBA because it's a lot less players and a lot less coaches. I think it's just a lot less people involved, but still the hotels become an issue.
It's a game where you're rubbing up against each other. Like, it just is.
It's not good.
It just is. And I just don't think there's a lot of way of getting around it. If we're talking about golf, where you can go play golf, like, and be on your own or in small groups, that's a whole different story to me.
Totally different. Could you imagine them playing in masks? Like, dude, I was waiting outside of HEB in a mask in like 90 degrees and I could barely breathe. I felt like I was doing cardio. Like, trying to play with the mask the last 2 minutes, maybe. We should just run 2-minute games like NBA Jam with masks on.
There you go.
For real.
Now you want to talk about finals. Like, that would be amazing. I mean, there's a lot of talking. And don't, like, I want NBA to happen. Like, I want sports to happen again, but I want it to happen safely. And I don't want it to be this watered down bullshit version of it just because we are trying to get something out there because we're desperate. We're not fucking desperate. Like, I miss basketball as much as you guys, but like,
sure.
We're talking about people's health here. Like, trying to keep people safe.
We've seen that stuff canceled or seasons of different sports canceled for way less important things than this.
Correct.
So it just sucks that it's all happening at once and we have nothing.
No, definitely. Yeah, no, it definitely stinks. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't see a world where these owners and everybody are willing to just put everybody at risk. But I also don't see a world where they're going to close the door on it anytime soon either. Why would you? That makes no, like, you want people to stay optimistic and that, the basketball is going to come back or any sport's going to come back, really.
Right. And they're going to deliberate over this. But the majority of owners have said what you're saying, Justin, in that they don't want to restart this season. The majority of owners are thinking that way. And Silver's trying to keep all his options open, but also being really good in that he's being very selfless and saying, I'm not going to use up half of the U.S.'s medical supplies to do this.
Yeah. I mean, seems like common sense, right? And the other thing, like, I could definitely see college football and college basketball being not a thing this year.
For sure.
Yeah, maybe not so much college basketball because it takes us into. But it's not like 2021 is just some cutoff at some point. Like it just goes on as long as it's going to go on. But I think there's a stronger chance that we don't see college football for sure.
Yeah, I just think pro football is realistic that we could see a form of that. And I also think the numbers are going to decline in July, August leading into the season, and they're going to use that as like a positive spin.
Dude, I really hope you're right. This thing spread like a wildfire in Australia too, even with the heat. But I hope that you're right and that we get at least some respite. But also that I hope that you're wrong in the way that people react to it. So
yeah, I'm not optimistic on like the overall situation. I'm just like optimistic on, and that's probably the wrong word, but I'm a believer in the NFL owners really wanting to continue to get their ROI. I think the NBA is just a more progressive league in general.
Yeah.
I'll say that though, but we made that exact same argument about the college basketball tournament this year and like the Final Four and everything, and this thing brought that to its knees. And so
I still think the NFL is a little even in front of the NCAA. Maybe
you think so, dude? That's a big moneymaker for basketball.
Yeah,
I'm saying. Like, that's a big moneymaker, so to just pull the plug on it like that is bold.
True.
I don't know. I think there's a world where that's possible. I don't know. I think if you're the NBA, though, at some point you have to spin this thing where you've got to start concentrating on the coming season, the excitement for that, and get people in that mindset. You have to. I mean, it's too early to do that now, but at some point it becomes a lost cause in a way. Like, we've already canceled the draft lottery.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which went completely unnoticed, by the way.
Which that could have been virtual. I don't understand why we canceled. Well, I guess you didn't have teams that finished a season. I don't know. What was the reason behind them canceling that?
Well, because they couldn't really work out the guys and have the combine.
Right.
Okay.
Which makes sense. But I mean, we're putting it on. I mean, that's a pretty significant pause that no one really talked about.
Yeah. Dude, you know what I'm also thinking about, just comparing the two leagues? I mean, I know this is obviously an NBA podcast, but it's relevant right now.
Sure.
NBA players are going to be a lot more likely to also agree to put things on pause and, do what's right for society because they're younger, they're coming in younger, their shelf lives are much longer, and their money is a lot more guaranteed. Where these NFL guys that are fringe level players that are making league minimum, that got maybe 2 to 4 years in the league, or like, I got to get this check now.
Yeah,
I'm willing to play.
Baseball's in that same spot. Yeah, baseball's in the same spot.
I think you see that across society as well, and that lower income individuals pull higher in regards to reopening the economy.
Yeah,
and it's just
except for Elon Musk.
That's a shame. Yeah,
yeah,
what a piece of garbage he's been. But
Hank Scorpio in person. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like there's the biggest rush in the world, and I feel like it's getting quieter and quieter as far as what's going to happen with it. And I know there is so much wait and see and all that, but I don't know. I just can't really wrap my head around a likely plan that, like, so let's flush that out for a second. Think about like the teamwork aspect it takes to win a championship. Right. When you're just going back to your hotel room by yourself every night, like that. Yeah. That doesn't seem like it's a good thing.
Just doing a Zoom call every night.
I hadn't even thought about that.
I mean, it would be pretty weird. So, I mean, there's been a lot of ideas tossed out about, how the season could go on. So let's say, it doesn't, because I think we're all leaning that direction. I mean, I'm the most optimistic, and you guys are talking me into it maybe not happening. And just thinking about the stance of the owners in silver. So would you be okay with a 2K title? Like, that's obviously been an idea that's thrown around out there. Like, that obviously comes with an asterisk, right?
Wait,
like, can LeBron get that and say, I got four rings now?
Wait, no. What? A 2K title?
Dude, that's been thrown around there like pretty seriously. Like, it's just simulated out.
So have you ever played the newest 2K game?
Yeah.
No.
If you run the classic version and you run down the court, you have Yao Ming running the corner for a transition 3. That game is freaking garbage for trying to work this out, dude. I don't trust the 2K title at all.
We would never hear the end of Josh.
I would be so mad. They don't know how to rotate multiple rotations. You get one rotation on defense, and that's it. I'm just joking. Dude, I don't trust that. I don't trust that at all.
Yeah,
the championship game, Dwight Howard just pulling from 30 on step back.
That's what it's like. Whenever you play that game, if you use classic teams, you have people like Dwight Howard, like prime Dwight Howard, running the corners for transition 3s. It's absurd. But
so we're gonna say no on 2K then.
No, I'm saying no on 2K. On the Break is firmly on the no on 2K championship.
Yeah, I'm not on that train either. That
is the most realistic thing. To just if we do come back, now I'm trying to be glass half full here. If we do come back, regular season is over, standings are where they are. We do a quickly as you can tournament.
You have to. That's the only way you can do
bizarre.
It. Yeah, that's the only way you can do it. And even then,
would that title be tainted?
To me, yeah, like you're gonna put that up against like fucking titles of some of the greatest of all time.
I think it depends on who wins it.
No.
John said, like, if
no,
LeBron
it doesn't.
wins it, critics will hate him.
The critics will be like, Jordan did it with the entire season.
No, like that would be
and the entire playoffs.
Could you imagine the shit that LeBron would catch for having a 2K title on his resume and no one else? Oh my God, dude.
Here's the Spurs won a championship whenever they had a shortened season. As a matter of fact, that was one of Tim Duncan's, and it's not tainted on Tim Duncan. Now they did have a full playoff, but the beginning half of that season was cut off by lockout, and that was when
it was like a 50-game season or something.
Yeah, and I don't think Spurs, or if you discuss Tim Duncan's relevance in the history of the NBA and how great he was in the history of NBA, nobody's going to bring that up.
But they still won 16 games in the playoffs, or maybe 15 at that point. They might still be doing best of 5.
Yeah, that might be the difference there, is that it's the playoffs that are cut short versus the beginning of the season.
So what if they just took the standings where they are and they do best 2 out of 3 for every round? Like, is that still LeBron wins the title? It's 3.5 rings for him.
I'm not making this all about LeBron. I am. This gives the Celtics a better chance to win. Like this should make me happy, but that ring would not be the same thing to me.
It gives the very fringe level of, like, the Celtics are a fringe competitor for a title.
Philly,
and it gives,
same kind of
like,
thing.
The Celtics, the Heat,
Philly.
the
It
Jazz,
gives the teams it gives the teams that don't have a chance to win it a chance to win it.
Right.
Yep.
So, like, by all means, I should be on board with this plan, but, like, that doesn't fucking sit next to a ring that has, like, you know, Kevin Garnett and, you know, all that. Like, that's not the same thing to me. And that's not that I don't see that as a fan. You know, as a purist of the game in that sense, like, I don't see that as a comparable title, no matter who wins it. Like, it has nothing to do with anybody's. It has nothing to do with anybody in the league necessarily.
We're going to be on here in 10 years trying to argue and compute how a 2 out of 3 coronavirus title compares to Bill Russell playing against 5'10" white guys.
John Stockton in the playoffs, you know.
Oh man,
God damn it! I don't see it.
Why wouldn't they play a full playoff series?
Just trying to limit exposure, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying that if we okay.
If you
did they do play a full playoff series, they do the full, you know, best of 7 across the board. I don't see how it's tainted because they still played.
Yeah, I think that's a different story. I think that's a very different story.
Okay.
I really do, because really and truly, to me, like, everything was pretty well set. We were getting pretty close to the end of the season to begin with. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of, you know, some outsiders looking in and what could happen, but, like, I mean,
the reason I do like a tournament, though, like a single elimination, is it's going to test who's been trying to stay in the best shape. And some guys don't probably have the access that other guys have, obviously, with personal courts, but, like, you know, the Sixers are out of it. Like, Joel Embiid is out of it right now.
Out of there.
Like, no chance.
I wouldn't trust Dwight Howard around Skittles, you know, it just all of that.
Joel Embiid would show up for his one game to move on and be like, "Oh, my stomach hurts. I ate a gallon of ice cream."
Jokic is just walking around at 325 right now.
Still playing 60 minutes, going in a triple overtime at 325.
Just lumbering.
Do you remember the Fat Energizer Bunny last year when he had that 55-minute game and he, like, still went off in the third overtime or something?
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Kyle, you seem on board with, like, so where's your head at it? I mean, do you think, like, a 2 out of 3, is that the same thing in your eyes as, like, what LeBron won with the fucking Heat? Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know where's your line on this? I should ask you.
I think, given the circumstances, like, it's still a title to me. Okay. If they come back around a tournament,
a ring's a ring. Okay.
A ring's a ring. As long as they come back around a tournament of some sort, I don't know. I'm just trying to be optimistic and throwing ideas out there. It's going to be tough, though.
I mean, is there any way that like, think about the non-LeBron contingent. I speak for those people pretty regularly, I would say. But, like, I would use that in every single argument against MJ any day, ever, always. No doubt about it.
Yeah, that's exactly why I said it really depends on who wins the championship. Because if it's Giannis's first in a multiple ring situation, I don't think anybody's going to talk about it. But if it's LeBron's last in a multiple ring situation, people will talk about that.
You know when people will talk about it? If James Harden gets hot and goes for 40 and the Rockets win, people will never count that as a championship.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I do.
We would never count
if the Celtics win one, Justin's just going to give us a spiel about how this team just had.
Here's the thing about Juice.
This camaraderie and came together, and it's a true grit story.
Danny Ainge, the whole thing.
Blue collar kind of work.
No, it'll be one of those ones that Alabama claims for like the 40s where they went back and scoured the record books and said, nobody else is claiming this championship. This was ours.
This is ours.
This is one of our 15.
Yeah. Nothing would make my eyes roll more, though. I mean, I'd be all on board for it, and I'd definitely celebrate it just because it'd be funny. But like, it's not a real championship. No matter it doesn't matter who it is. And if the Bucks prattled off a championship, or if James Harden, same thing. Any of those teams prattled off a championship based on what we were looking at going into this whole thing where the NBA shut down, I would roll my eyes and say that's not a real ring. Go find another argument.
So here's the question to argue that. The NCAA tournament is all about who gets hot at the right time.
Definitely.
It's rarely ever the best team wins the championship. It's about who gets hot. This scenario that you guys are talking about would be who is getting hot. It may not be the best team.
Yeah.
Would you discount all of the NCAA championships?
Right. Yeah, I would, because at the end of the day, when you get done with this, what do you get in hand? A Larry O'Brien trophy.
Yeah.
What did every other team up to this point get in hand? A Larry O'Brien trophy. Now, if we change the format going forward, that's the new precedent. But like a one-off thing, it doesn't carry the same weight to me.
That's a good argument. Okay, so it's inherently different than previous or subsequent championships, not necessarily like an NCAA championship.
Right.
Okay, that's a good argument.
Yeah, if you change the playoff,
I approve of that one, Justin.
That's fair. I appreciate that. That's all I've ever wanted is your approval. So here we are.
What about a single game elimination, and then the finals is a 7-game series?
Dude, that would be great. I mean, all these scenarios I would love. Don't get me wrong.
I'm just spitballing here. Like that. I mean, dude, can you imagine what the ratings would be with the thirst for sports right now?
Could you imagine watching the fucking Magic play like they somehow squeak out a bunch of weird wins and playing like the Lakers? That'd be a snooze fest.
You know what's crazy? Because like the Western Conference Finals, if it was single game elimination leading up to a 7-game final, it would be a single game elimination game, most likely between the Lakers and the Clippers, and that would probably get less viewers than a preseason NFL game.
That's almost certainly true.
Which is fucking crazy.
Here's the thing that's crazy about this entire situation is I don't think that limiting these games, regardless of where you're at, I don't think that limiting these series to 3 games would change anything in the way that the virus is spread. I think they'd probably consult with an epidemiologist and they would say, if you're going to play 3 games, you might as well play 7.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to stop it.
That's factual. The argument is from a supply standpoint and a testing standpoint, because they're going to have to test between every game.
Dude, how much would it – here's the LeBron James' tainted championship. He gets to the finals, everything's been fine, and then Giannis tests positive for the coronavirus, and he can't play. And they beat a Chris Middleton-led Bucks.
Yeah.
He dropped a 5 on everybody's list.
I'm going to put an asterisk on that one.
Yeah,
Chris Middleton's the best player.
People would start putting Havlicek on him on their top 30 above him.
Man.
Oh, my
Speaking
God.
Speaking of LeBron, J-Mac was so gracious to inform us of, I guess, a recent story. This came out this week.
Yeah, I guess like the last couple of days. So I guess the best way to describe this to me, so you guys have both read this story, right?
Yep.
All right. So the best way to describe this story to me is it seems like LeBron got caught in a lot of crossfire here. Because
since so proven guilty.
No, for sure. No, I'm just saying if this is true. So Kyle, do you want to set up like kind of what happened?
Yeah, so evidently LeBron he was called out by a supposed and alleged affair that he had with some famous Instagram model. But he was called out by her friend. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, her friend.
Publicly called out, right?
Very public.
Like, I mean, kind of taking some shots.
Yeah.
And, obviously, I think LeBron does a pretty good job of keeping, for an athlete of his size, keeping his personal life, aside from his son's basketball and terrible TikToks,
sure,
keeping that pre-quarantine on the low, kind of. Like, he has his wife that he's been with, but he keeps that on the low. This one looks like, and he's had a couple of these with a lot of Instagram models over the last 3 or 4 years as that's become more popular. But this one looks like he might not be able to get out of it as easy And this girl's just coming in throwing haymakers, which makes me think she has some, like, I don't know. I feel like there's some real bad blood here, and it's probably not for no reason. But that being said, I think he's innocent.
I'm pulling. All that to be said, he didn't do it. Okay, so I'm pulling up the actual quote right now because it's essentially this Instagram model put him on blast on Instagram, and it was just a picture of him. Or on Instagram, excuse me, on Snapchat, and it's a picture of him shooting free throws at the, in his obviously uniform, like at the game, and it says, "Am I the only one that's not a fan of LeBron? I guess I've never been a fan of a guy that cheats on his wife, especially with," and then tag that girl's Snapchat handle.
Like, damn, like
pretty brutal, man.
Like, and you got to sit there and think, okay, is this girl just throwing it, a fishing line out there and seeing if she gets someone to catch? Because that's probably going to get some bites. Like, that's a huge story.
Whether it did or not, it's getting bites.
I really miss due process. I really miss innocent until proven. I miss it so much. I hate that we're in an age where somebody who's famous because their friend is really attractive can say, "Hey, this guy had an affair," and everybody just jumps on the pitchfork train. You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you what.
They're the herders leading the sheep.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what.
Good, fellas.
If we can go to court and LeBron can defend himself, I'm happy to call him innocent if he's innocent.
That's fair. Yeah.
I'm happy to
go to court.
I just want to go. I just want to.
Did you know, Kyle? You know what your response reminded me of is? Do you remember that Chappelle show where Dave was on the trials for these different murderers, and he had to defend all of these people, and one of them was Robert Blake, who was this white murderer. It was like, oh, dude, that guy did it. And then it was OJ, and he was like furious about everything. And he says, we can't find the murderer of Tupac, but we're sitting here putting OJ behind bars. Nicole Simpson can't rap, and it was just perfect for you, Kyle. You were like, that being said, he's innocent.
Awesome. Chappelle Show is a good rewatchable in quarantine times.
Dude, yes.
It is. But if he gets put on blast, like, that's pretty wild though. He's really, Kyle, you're right. LeBron has always kept his stuff under wraps.
Yeah.
Would we be surprised? Like, no. What? Like, I would be a little surprised, but not really. Like, not that surprised.
Jordan would never do this.
Oh, never.
Jordan.
He would just go into the casinos and gamble at 2:00 in the morning in Jersey City.
This is like LeBron was like, "This is my takeaway from the Jordan doc of how I got to be the greatest of all time." Just gonna follow in his footsteps here. Could you imagine what those guys would have been like?
Oh my God, dude! Well,
on Instagram.
So I'm glad that you brought that up because we've heard a lot of backlash about the whole Rodman part of the documentary.
Yeah, we seem to like it a lot more than everybody else did.
Yeah, everybody seemed
people not like it.
People seem really pissy about Simmons and Russillo went on a big rant about how he's boring and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, I mean, kinda, but like you can't tell the story without him.
Is Simmons getting worse?
Yes.
Simmons seems like he's getting worse to me. His quality of stuff is dropping.
He's kind of getting the get off my lawn syndrome a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's gotten takey for sure.
Yeah, I do think like the Rodman thing is so crazy to us because there's no players like that really anymore. Like, what was the last player that was really like a
Who was the last cross-dressed?
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like AI or like Latrell Sprewell or like the last like Ron Artest.
No. I mean, there are people. I mean, there are people that have just not made it because of some of the like Delonte West, people like that just didn't.
That's true. But I'm saying like good players.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Delonte was
that impacted teams.
Yeah. I mean, Delonte helped LeBron out, so and his mom.
Yeah.
That was when LeBron James turned into Showdown LeBron. I don't know that there's ever been a player that was as polarizing as Rodman ever. And he was a superstar too.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day because there was so the new Drake tape just dropped and there's a line that revert back to an old Eminem song called Superman, and like I was thinking about it, and like I was just thinking about how like polarizing Eminem was at that point in time. Like and like it was such a different such a different time then. And Dennis Rodman was shocking back then. And so for Simmons to like get up there, like he remembers that time of basketball very well, obviously. And for him to get up there and grandstand and be like, oh, this guy's boring, blah, 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 there's nothing new about him. Yeah, fucking right. There's a 30 for 30 about him already. Like, what did you want here? They weren't just going to not talk about him.
Yeah. Yep. Which Simmons, you created and got money off of that 30 for 30 being super popular.
No, hold on. It was 30 for 30. It was it was something else. It was like not an E60 either, but it was one of their other
Rodman's.
No, that was a 30 for 30, I'm pretty sure.
No, it was a different version of it. Simmons clarified that, but
he would.
It is.
So he didn't want to take responsibility for that, is what that is.
Right.
Okay. So he wants to give his takeout and kill Rodman, even though he did. Okay.
It's probably a little more played out to older guys, but to us, it's interesting because,
come on,
like,
get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
You can't tell the story without him, and that's what you're doing is telling the story of the Bulls, not MJ.
Exactly. I don't think you could tell the story of MJ and the Bulls and who MJ was to that Bulls team without going through the Dream Team stuff, which hopefully we get in these next couple of episodes.
Yeah, I said last episode, if they go into the Dream Team, this is going to be the MJ documentary, and I think that this I think they're trying to wrap an MJ documentary in the guise of it being a team documentary, and to do that, you have to talk about Rodman at least for the 3 minutes of screen time that they gave him.
I think that's one way to look at it, but I also think that the Dream Team took all of that to such a new level. It was the 3 championships, but it was just it I don't know, man. I would just remember that making it like just bigger than life, really and truly. And I think that's an important part of the story too. I get what you're saying, but I don't think that just makes it all about MJ either. I get that take though. It's not necessarily a bad take.
And I guess you could argue that Scottie Pippen went there. Jordan has had. I wish that I could see the statistics in regards to how much screen time Jordan has had compared to these other guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the goal, though.
I mean, that's what people want to see,
right?
Do you think we could assemble a dream team that would be able right now with the current NBA rosters that would be able to compete with that team?
No,
I think the Redeem team could have beaten the Dream Team.
I know you do.
I'm not surprised by that take.
We're losing older viewers again.
I don't. I think that team would put today's players in a body bag. That's been another
really. I mean, but really, like, who's guarding Steph?
Rodman.
Like, who's guarding Giannis?
No one's gonna realize they have to stand 30 feet away from the basket.
Dude, if Steph Curry went back into that league, they would pull him out and burn him at the stake for being a witch. Like, people would be like, what the hell is this guy doing? The same thing with Kevin Durant. Like, people are doing stuff. Like, go back and sans Jordan. Dude, Jordan was ahead of his time. Jordan was doing stuff that they're doing now back then. Go back and look at the 1996 highlights for an NBA season and then compare them to last year's highlights for an NBA season. And tell me that there is not so much more talent in the league now than there was.
I'll say this. There's absolutely more talent across the board. Your average player is way better. There's more star depth. I still kind of think the Dream Team could maybe beat today's team because, like, Giannis is a good point. No one can guard Giannis on that team, but like Shaq is going to be a real problem. I mean, you can say you can just run the ball up and down the court, and you could have just.
Was Shaq on that team? Shaq wasn't on that team.
Shaq was not on the Dream Team.
No. Patrick Ewing was.
Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone.
Giannis was ripping down a board and running 90 feet to the other end and dunking. Like, Patrick Ewing's not keeping up with that.
David Robinson would be the only one that could play.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe Charles Barkley, but he would get yammed on. Like, I don't. Well, I couldn't see Patrick Ewing guarding. I think you would. I think you're right. You would have to put David Robinson on.
They could put Bird on Durant.
That would go well.
Yeah, that would go real well.
Durant would.
I hate to use this as a cop out for that argument, but it really does depend on what rule set you're playing in too. Like, are you playing in the 90s? Or are you playing now?
I think the old rules benefit current players more. Giannis is way stronger than people realize. LeBron is way stronger than people realize.
Yeah. I personally agree with that, but I think you guys all know my take on what the new NBA is, and I think our listeners are probably sick of me.
I will say Karl Malone and David Robinson in the Dream Team picture I pulled up look like they're on freaking horse steroids. Those guys
are big.
Yeah.
You couldn't rotate as those bigs though, or you couldn't rotate until somebody was actually beaten.
If we could get them to do a rotation of Chris Mullin, John Stockton, Larry Bird, and Christian Laettner, that would help a lot.
God almighty. Holy moly.
Could you imagine if people had to wait to rotate as long as they had to wait to rotate on Jordan on LeBron? Dude, it would be like that Jason Terry dunk every single play. You remember the one where they throw it up back behind him to on the Celtics and he just murdered them? It would be that every single play.
Yeah. I think I love, though, that people have this conversation as if teams don't know and didn't know or wouldn't be able to figure out how to adjust. That's where this argument falls really short for me and where it's really hard to say. That's probably the gray area for me, is like what adjustments would be made. Like you'd have a true test of wills because you'd have some sort of Phil Jackson versus, I don't know. I don't even know who today would be. Like I guess Steve Kerr, which is pretty much a protege of himself. So, et cetera, you know, it just depends on how that all works out. You want to put like fucking Phil Jackson against D'Antoni? God almighty, kill me already.
It's just Harden dribbling for 45 minutes.
All it is.
With Scottie Pippen ISO'd on him.
Pretty much the current Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
What about
my only issue with the Redeem team is, like, I don't know what kind of starting. You said the Redeem team could beat the Dream team. I don't know who your starting five is. You're rolling out there.
Dwight Howard.
Yeah, Howard. No, yeah, my bad. He's your playing the position five, like your starting five, like Howard,
I see.
LeBron, Kobe, D Wade, and Melo.
So that was prime LeBron and prime Kobe.
And
those
prime
two.
D Wade and prime Melo.
Yeah, dude, that's tough, bro. I don't remember who else was on it. Was Kirk Heinrich on that team?
No, you got a little Darren Williams.
Dude, he was good.
Jay Kidd. You got Chris Paul, Chris Bosh.
Yeah, I think you start Chris Paul because Chris Paul was unbelievable. I think you go Chris Paul.
But you got Kobe. Magic. You got Magic starting for the Dream Team.
That's
so you're going to have to run LeBron at point. You got to leave Chris Paul on the bench for when Stockton comes in.
I trust Chris Paul to be able to, like, at least be serviceable against Magic on the perimeter until somebody says we need to put Magic into the post.
Josh is just going to stick Chris Paul on Bird.
Yeah. Go after him, pick his pockets.
I would start Paul, Kobe, Bron, and then Dirk was on that team.
Dude, no. Chris Paul and Kobe.
Dirk's not from the United States, bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Was it Chris Bosh?
Yeah, Chris Bosh.
Maybe Chris Bosh at the 4, and then Howard at the 5.
I would put Melo at the 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Kobe and Chris Paul. I don't know why everyone has always been convinced that was a good idea. That's just one of those things. We've been there.
They won a gold.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
Katie wasn't. My bad.
Speaking of Chris Paul, though,
Garnett was on that team, though, right?
Yes, I think so. Right?
No, Tayshaun Prince was.
Garnett wasn't on over. Okay.
Wow, what a world! Really,
Tayshaun Prince was a good defender.
I would have thought KG. Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But this whole story that's been floating around about Chris Paul being the one that's going to resurrect the Knicks is quite humorous to me. I mean, is there
makes all the sense in the world to me?
Yeah, I mean, they want to do it. The Knicks are down to sign him. That's good news. That's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
Dude, here's what's crazy. I don't trade him if I'm the Thunder.
I agree with you.
Unless you give me either RJ Barrett or a first rounder.
I would do it for 100% for RJ Barrett because what they're also doing is they're taking the contract of. Dude, his last option on that is $46 million.
Yeah, to make the money work, you would have to include Julius Randle as well.
You'd have to include pretty much all of their power forwards is pretty much how that would work out.
No, that would be over $100 million.
I just don't see a God dang it. I don't see a trade that could go through. I think you'd have to do RJ, Julius Randle, and Kevin Knox. What do the numbers look like for that?
Yeah, that would be about 75% of the money, so you can make that work. Is Chris Paul still making more than all those guys?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
But would that benefit the Knicks doing that?
No. So if Presti can fleece them and make that happen, which he's been known to fleece, but I just don't see this deal getting done. The other thing that you have to think about too is SGA isn't going to be 22 for forever. So you have 7, like the Thunder fans will say, we have 7 first-round picks over the next 7 years. But how many teams have we, or 7 extra first-round picks? But how many teams have we seen repeatedly miss on first round picks.
I mean,
and never be in perpetual rebuilding phase. The Cavs, if LeBron James wasn't born there,
they should trade 2 or 3 of those and get a top 3 or top 5 pick and just try to parlay it into really good players.
All right,
exactly.
Josh, what was the
this time when you have 3 MVPs, don't break it up.
What was the trade you laid out, Josh?
Kevin Knox, RJ Barrett, and Julius Randle for Chris Paul.
RJ Barrett and Julius Randle.
You can put that in the trade simulator. I'm pretty sure that's
doing that
work,
right now. I'm pretty sure that would work.
I think those numbers will work, but I wouldn't do that if I was the Knicks.
No way, because that's your biggest free agent signing of the last 2 years and your last 2 first-round picks for a 35-year-old guy that's making $40+ million. It's just not a recipe for success.
He's going to teach a bunch of bench players a winning culture.
And I'm not out on RJ at all.
I like RJ. I still really do. I think his game is tailor-made for today's NBA.
Yeah, he's 19.
Yeah.
He's going to be good.
So that fails.
Okay.
So the aggregate is greater than 19.6 million. Oh, yeah, because you can't exceed 125% of your cap unless you're using an actual, what's it called, like a supermax. And so essentially all that salary that you lose for Chris Paul, that was under a supermax, so part of that's covered. So it's more of a cap issue than it is a value for value issue, I would say.
Yeah, I would have to play around with it for quite a bit. I have no idea how to make the money work in regards
to it. The bottom line of all this is why aren't the Knicks trying to get Chris Paul to solve their problems?
Because they don't understand what the problem is. The problem is James Dolan.
Yeah, I'm into that. Chris Paul would be fantastic for adding to the Heat. I think he'd be great to add to the Heat. But I don't think that he's a player that you bring in and try to. I mean, he's obviously not a player that you try to rebuild around. It doesn't make sense. You don't add a locker room guy to a team that's full of nothing but people that should stay in the locker room.
That's true.
And I don't even know if Chris Paul's a locker room guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Heat, you hope because you got Jimmy for 4. If you can keep Bam, you got a couple of good rookies. You can pay Chris this outrageous deal next year and the following because he's going to pick that option up, and then hope that you guys have been competitive those 2 seasons. In his last couple, that's obviously probably the back end of his prime, he's basically out of his prime, but he's still a serviceable player, and you hope that he signs for $8 million just to win a ring, and has the locker room presence, and that it's that story. But I don't know. It's going to have to be a team like that. I like the Heat fit though a lot.
The Heat fit makes a lot more sense. I don't see that happening necessarily, but the Knicks have been linked to everybody ever. So when I saw this, I immediately rolled my eyes like hell because here we go with these rumors for the next however long. This is a team that was supposed to have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving on its team, remember?
Yeah, and I watched
and Zion.
True.
I watched a podcast of the Up in Smoke of Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson with KD, and he was like, "Yeah, I thought about the Knicks for a couple of minutes, but nah." And that was it when they asked him how free agency went.
Awesome.
And it was so genuine. I was just geez.
People know, dude. People know. Players know that it's a bullshit basketball organization. You got to feel bad for these young guys that are there. You don't feel bad for guys like Julius Randle signing a deal there, though.
No, but he just took the most where he could, get in. I don't blame him for that. But yeah, I think RJ needs to get out of that situation to be able to succeed. A guy like SGA, a young talent like that, similar game to RJ, he's benefited a lot more from being with Chris Paul, but it's the organization that is also helping him benefit too.
Right. One last note before we get out of here, because we're going to go watch the Jordan doc here in a little bit. What do you think of Luka's shoe?
I like it, dude.
I think it looks really good.
It's just a reprint of the Jordans, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. It's the ones with a kind of like a mint green.
I like that mint green. That's a real good look. And it's got some of his actual writing and stuff like that along the soles and stuff. I think they're pretty slick looking.
I do too.
I'm not a big high top guy, but I get it.
I think Luka's going to actually be a guy with a big shoe line. I could see that in his future for sure.
I don't understand how. Do what?
He needs to sound with New Balance though.
No, I don't think
he's got that New Balance look.
He's got a little more swag than that. I actually see Luka being a Jordan guy.
Yeah, I think it works perfectly. I'm a fan though. I like them. I think that they're there's something that I would even consider buying, and I'm not even a huge shoe guy. It's saying a lot.
Yeah, I think they look really good.
We took shoes,
but he needs his own shoe.
Do what?
He's too good to not have his own shoe.
Oh, yeah.
If his agent needs to work on not just saying let's reprint these or make these our colors, he needs to have his own.
I see what you're saying.
Josh rocks hooping shoes to like. He used to wear them to work all the time.
I still wear them to work, dude.
Josh is just working from home, and he's just in his boxers, but he's still got like some LeBron sixes on or something strapped all the way up to above the ankle.
It's very, very true. Josh has always been a good sneaker guy. I see what you're saying though, Josh. As far as like wanting your own kind of look or whatever, I think that's probably to come though. I think there's a ton of iterations down the line that he could potentially try to get going. I think it's in the time that we're in right now. I feel like it's a time that everybody's kind of appreciating Jordan, so I kind of get the PR look and why he did it that way.
Yeah, I didn't think about that honestly. That's a good point. Would you do Chris Paul for Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney in a first rounder?
No.
Yes.
I would not.
Yes.
Because that works in the trade machine.
I would.
The Warriors said, or everybody whenever the Warriors brought Andrew Wiggins over said, this is bait to get a big time
asset. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, a big time asset that's has one of these supermax deals. You wouldn't, Justin, from the Warriors point or the OKC or the Thunder point?
From the Warriors point, I think anything, if you can get off that money from a Thunder standpoint, and I think he's a big factor in growing those young guys. So I think that is important. You don't want to rip the heart and soul out of the locker room like that if you can help it. Yeah. But I mean, from a Golden State standpoint, I don't want anybody that you've got to put the ball in their hands any more than you already have. Yeah, then you already have Steph, Clay. You know, you need these guys that are helpful around those guys. And
that's a really good point. Yeah.
I think you could get more for Andrew Wiggins, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I don't think he's worth that necessarily, but I think that's possible.
So whenever you go into the trade simulator and you get a successful trade, they have Hollinger's analysis, which is just based on PER swaps. OKC loses 7 wins, and the Golden State Warriors with this trade lose 31 wins.
Jesus.
Wow.
Which is crazy, dude. I don't think I've ever seen one higher than that.
Wow.
That doesn't surprise me knowing Chris Paul.
Yeah, especially one for that seems like a pretty even talent swap to me. I don't know.
It is, but I think they're going to try to move Wiggins for a 3-4 tweener type of can guard every position. Andre Iguodala,
Jimmy Butler would be good for that.
Holy shit, yeah! Man, but yeah. I think he's really happy in Miami. I've been watching a lot of interviews and podcasts lately. I think Jimmy's happy in Miami. I don't think he's going to leave.
I don't think so either. I think that's kind of the perfect spot for someone like him.
Who's the next Draymond Green that is like a DPOY, multiple switches 1 through 5? Who's that? Because that's what they need. They don't need any more scoring than Curry and Clay can put out.
Right. That's kind of where my head's at with it. It's just
from I don't know who that next guy in the NBA is.
I don't either. I have to sit there and think about it.
Bam.
I could see that.
Like I don't know if he's not as versatile.
Better offensive player though, like because he could just like bully dudes and dunk.
That's true.
Better offensive player, worse defensive player. I would say he's a better 4-5. Well, I don't know, dude. Draymond was a hell of a 4-5.
He's definitely not the team defender that Draymond is, but he's a good rim protector.
Dude, here's what I will say about Bam. Hear me when I say this. He's not as athletic as Giannis. He's quicker footed than Giannis. And he has better left and right movement than Giannis does at the same size. I think Giannis is probably longer.
He's got that special athleticism where he can double jump really quick too at a big guy. That's hard to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I like more so like Giannis. A big thing that Giannis is struggling with is I watch his games over and over again is he doesn't have the ability to get somebody leaning one way and then go the other way. He has the ability to only go forward and through 5 different players.
Yeah, he hits that first crossover and then just goes.
Yeah, exactly. Bam actually has that ability, which is I don't know that that's something that you can teach. I don't know that you can teach somebody you need to get faster laterally. Yeah. I think that might just be something that you either have or you
can't teach 6'10" dudes that. Like Bam's big, dude.
Right. So I'm super high on Bam, dude. And that, like, people talk about Jimmy Butler going over there and doing great things, or Tyler Herro or Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson was a freaking steal, by the way. But I think that Bam is the future of that team.
Me too.
Yeah, I think there's a strong
Jimmy's older than people think.
How old is Jimmy Butler now?
Like 31.
Wow, 31. Okay. Yeah.
Also, he's great when you need a bucket, but he's not great. He's not consistent for me.
No, he never has been. He's
like
he shows up in big moments though.
He has super high highs.
He's
and
30.
He's on his highs. He's one of the
back.
best players in the league, but like he's just not a consistent go out and drop 25 every single night and then guard the best player on the other team. He's an 18-pointer, dude. He might be one of the best 18-point scorers I've ever seen.
I mean, he's been better than that though, and we know he's one of the best two-way players. Like that's obvious, but I mean, he's averaged over 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons in a row.
Is he a 20-point player? Where's he at?
Yeah, so I'll just give you his last 8 seasons: 20, 21, 24, 22, 19, 21, 18, 20.
So I think that he's probably about a 21 guy, 20 guy.
Yeah, but he's also a really, really good defender. And his percentages, like I always think of him as a not efficient scorer. His percentages are pretty good. His 3 percentages are not good, but I mean, he shoots 46, 47% from the field. Yeah,
he scores at the second level more than most guys, which I think is why you see his like for the amount of shots that he's taken, he could be higher if he was like a Curry, obviously, or if he was a guy that just knocked down a bunch of threes. But he's a more of a mid-range guy, which you don't see a whole lot of nowadays. But I think that Bam's the future of that team. As well as I could honestly see Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson being a poor man's Clay and Steph.
Yep, for sure.
So I'm really high on the Heat's future, and I think that I don't even know if they need another piece. I think that you can let that marinate for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean everyone can use another defender that can guard multiple positions, but yeah, other than that, I think offensively they're set.
Yeah, and really that's why they went out and got Andre Iguodala, because they said that we need this defender that can switch multiple. But I think that
I forgot about that.
You had that.
At the end.
Yeah, you had that in Justice Winslow. I think that was honestly a bad trade by Pat.
That was, yeah. We talked about that. I agree.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter as much now, but it is what it is. Still so much to be worked out with all that. All right, well, let's get out of here. We got the Jordan documentary to watch, so we'll be back here in just a couple of days with you to do the actual Jordan doc review, so we won't be right after this time since we're getting this one out to you guys now, but we'll be back Monday or Tuesday to get it done for you guys. All right, boys.
Sweet.
Take it easy. We'll see you later.
See you, man.